Today, I'm going to go ahead and demo Cline, which is a coding extension in Visual Studio Code. It's going to use Claude 3.7, which just released last Monday. I've been using 3.5 for a couple weeks now, but this has been interesting to see. So LLMs and coding have had an interesting history over the last couple of years. Originally, they were toys. Then it kind of turned into code complete tools, which was nice and helpful. And then it kind of could make kind of template code, write tests, do some documentation. In the last few months, it's been doing more and more larger projects. And with the release of the reasoning models recently, it's doing a much better job of this. So my initial prompt was, I would like to create a website for blogging. So typical vague user requirement. Great. So here again is a reasoning. So it was in plan mode, understanding the needs and detailed plan. So I asked you a bunch of questions about like what kind of content and design preferences and what features, which I then answered. This is very much like a consultant just asked me a bunch of questions about my very vague requirements, which is pretty normal. It then went and actually did a little bit more detail here. And then based on that, it went ahead and decided what it was going to do. So in this case, it picked this technology stack is the best pick. So you can kind of see what it did there. It went ahead and decided with the front and back end, the database styling, kind of documented that. And then it did a diagram of all the different major features and components, which you can kind of see here. This up to this point is pretty good. Kind of design architect kind of would do this. They designed the project structure and then went and figured out implementation phases, which I find this remarkable. They actually figured out the different phases they would go through. They would start with like core and setup, move to user management, do posting management, organization discovery. And much like we do as engineers, we kind of plan the project out into discrete chunks that are executable. You can see here it did a database design based on the so far what I actually want. That looks great. Key pages it's going to create, and then ask if we're good to go. Which at this point I could have gone and added things or changed things and asked for changes, but I just said, yeah, that looks great. So I went ahead and started writing the code. So in this case, I moved over to act mode, and I'm auto approving here. So you can make it so you can approve everything, but this tool, Cline, can actually execute commands. So it can run bash scripts. It can run the web browser and actually use the web browser. There's instances of it actually testing changes it made and finding bugs and fixing it itself once it's done testing using the web browser. So you can see here, it kind of goes through this. An interesting point is that I really like is you can do checkpoints where it does all these checkpoints. If it goes off the rails, which very later on in this, I went off the rails, I had to restore back to a checkpoint. You can easily do that. So you can see here, it went ahead and do these commands. It's creating directories. It's going to get down to actually making some files down here. Just scrolling through. So at the end here, went ahead and it's basically said here's it's done. So it told me what it implemented. Has a backend Node service, Node.js service. Has a front end React service. This is the things they do. And again, the structure. Told me how to run it, both the client and the server, and then suggested future improvements, some things that I might want to add into it. So at this point, I asked it to run the client and server, which it went and did that for me, which is fairly easy, but still kind of a nice thing to be able to do. You can see here it was actually testing the app. So this is running a browser instance itself, which it then can go in and click buttons and interpret text and all the rest. So you can see here it actually did it. It was doing a very simple verification the application worked. And then that closed the browser. Here it actually went ahead and did some next steps. So I went ahead and just said, go do that. So it went ahead and figured out what it was going to do. And then one by one actually did those steps. Here you can see, again, it's kind of a completion message. Did what it said what it did, see what it tested. So it actually registered a user, created a blog post, and verified authentication's working. And so that kind of was the end there of that part. I ran the app and new posts weren't showing up, which was annoying. So I just, instead of going and actually even looking at the code, before I did that, I said, hey, it's not working. So you can see here, it kind of figured out where it should look. And then it found the issue is the dashboard and some of the JS was actually using some mocks. And so we wanted to go ahead and want to actually use the real back end. So it went and did that and fixed the problem. and then it worked the next time through, worked just fine. So the next thing I want to do is I want to actually deploy this to Azure. So I asked it to do that. It figured out what it needed to do, started creating files and updated files, so forth, which it looked like it did a good job. It didn't use environment variables, things I'd expected to use. And you can see down here at the end, it went ahead and said what it did, and then it went in and how to deploy it using one-click development or managed deployment or continuous deployment. Environment variables set and the next steps, which I thought was pretty cool. I wanted to actually deploy this to Git to push it. So I noticed it had a git ignore, so I asked it to do that. I went and made all that complete. And then the last thing I try to do is location. I had basically a well-known location you could add to the post. That actually kind of worked, but it broke some other things. So I actually went back. I think I know where I went wrong. That'll be kind of the next thing I look at doing. I would note I spent $35 on this, almost 36, which is a fair amount. But I iterate a lot. I went back and forth, so not terribly surprising that happened. I probably could have done it cheaper if I kind of had done a little bit less. You can see here, this is what I pushed to GitHub. Pretty good README. It went ahead and did a deploy to Azure button. So if I do this, it'll actually make the deployment. I can't right now because I have to do some environment variables to actually set it up. With your features, the tech stack, the structure, what to get started, installation, and running the app. One of the endpoint, actually pretty good job. This endpoint's pretty clean, nice, reasonable endpoint. And future improvements, kind of nice to have, and then a deployment guide. So if I came to this repository, it looked like someone had spent a fair amount of time thinking through this README, kind of pointing out the project. So good job. And then here's the actual site. So you can see here, I can go to the main page, get a list of posts, click on them, make comments, read them, so forth. I can see my own, edit, delete. Add a new post, and then it actually has got a full user registration and login. So nice little site. I'm going to continue iterating and adding features to. That's kind of my next question is, so I can write the initial app. It did a pretty good job. What does it look like adding features? How bad is that? Or how good is that?